Have you ever looked around and noticed something strange? The people who talk the most about changing their lives are often the ones who never do. They announce every goal, they share every plan, they explain every dream to anyone willing to listen. But months pass, years pass, and somehow they are still standing in the exact same place, talking about the same future they talked about before. Meanwhile, somewhere quietly, someone else is working. No announcements, no updates, no need for anyone to notice, just focused, disciplined, invisible effort happening day after day. And then one morning, people wake up and suddenly, this person looks completely different. Their life looks completely different. And everyone asks the same confused question: how did they change so much without anyone noticing? The answer is simple. They stopped performing their progress and started protecting it. Powerful people do not waste energy trying to impress the world. They disappear from the noise. They stop explaining what they are about to do and become obsessed with actually doing it. While everyone else is fighting for attention, they are quietly building a life nobody expected. One of the biggest reasons people never reach their goals is because they talk too much before doing the work. The moment they feel motivated or excited about something, they immediately start telling everyone. They post their goals online, explain their vision to friends, look for encouragement before they have built a single thing. But talking about success is not the same as creating it. Words may feel good in the moment, but they do not change your life unless action follows them. Many people become addicted to validation instead of progress. The compliments and encouragement make them feel productive, even when nothing is actually changed. Slowly, they spend more time talking about the future than working toward it. The excitement fades because their focus was never really on discipline, it was always on attention. Quiet people understand something that most people miss. Goals grow stronger in silence. When you stop announcing everything, you protect your focus and guard your energy. You stop trying to impress people and start putting all your effort into becoming better. Instead of explaining your vision every day, you quietly work on turning it into reality. Not everyone deserves access to your dreams. Some people genuinely enjoy discouraging others. Some will laugh at your goals because they cannot imagine a better future for themselves. Others will project their own fears and limitations onto you without even realizing it. Silence becomes protection. The less people know about what you are building, the less power they have to distract your mind or weaken your belief. Work quietly, improve quietly, stay focused even when nobody notices your effort. Let people assume nothing is happening in your life, because one day your results will become impossible to ignore, and your success will speak louder than your words ever could. Your energy is one of the most valuable things you own. But most people waste it every single day without realizing it. They give too much of themselves to drama, arguments, gossip, and people who constantly disturb their peace. By the end of the day, they feel completely drained, not because life is impossible, but because their mind never gets a single moment of real calm. This is why silence becomes powerful. When you choose to become quieter, you stop giving your energy away to everything and everyone around you. You stop reacting to every opinion, every insult, every unnecessary situation. Instead of constantly explaining yourself or engaging in arguments that lead to nowhere, you learn to stay calm and stay focused on your own path. Silence also helps you think more clearly. Most people are surrounded by so much noise that they can no longer hear their own thoughts. They are always distracted by social media, by conversations, by other people's problems and other people's lives. But when you spend time in real silence, your mind gradually becomes calmer. You begin to understand yourself better. Your decisions improve. Your focus sharpens. Your emotions become more stable and more reliable. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people only bring stress and emotional heaviness into your life. Every conversation with them leaves you feeling worse than before. This is why emotionally strong people become more private as they grow. They stop giving their attention to things that do not serve their future. Some of the most powerful transformations in life happen during the quiet seasons, the season where nobody notices your effort, nobody applauds your discipline, nobody fully understands the changes happening deep inside you. But slowly, your mindset becomes stronger, your habits improve, your life begins changing from the inside out, quietly, consistently, and powerfully. Silence is not weakness. Silence is self-protection. Sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is to stay quiet, guard your peace, and keep moving forward without needing anyone to understand your journey. Because while the world is watching for the loudest voices, it is the quietest ones who are actually building something real.
There is a kind of person who spends their entire life looking for permission. Permission to start, permission to dream, permission to change. They cannot move forward without knowing that the people around them agree, support them, and believe in what they are trying to do. And because that kind of approval never comes consistently, they stay frozen, waiting, hoping, never truly beginning. This need for validation is one of the quietest traps a person can fall into. It does not feel like a trap at first. It feels like being reasonable. It feels like caring about relationships. It feels like being humble enough to ask for guidance. But slowly, over time, it becomes a prison, a life built around other people's comfort instead of your own truth. Emotionally strong people understand something that takes most people years to learn. When your confidence depends on what others think of you, your peace will never be stable. It will rise and fall based on compliments and criticisms that have nothing to do with who you actually are or what you are actually capable of becoming. Many people spend years trying to fit into places where they simply do not belong. They change their personality to make others comfortable. They hide their real thoughts to avoid judgment. They explain every decision and justify every choice because somewhere deep inside they are terrified of being misunderstood. And slowly, without realizing it, they lose themselves. They give away so much of who they are while trying to gain acceptance from people who may never truly value them anyway. The moment you stop seeking validation, something shifts inside you. You stop making decisions just to impress people. You stop needing constant reassurance before taking action. You begin trusting your own judgment more than outside opinions. You stop asking everyone what they think about your goals and start quietly focusing on building them instead. This does not mean you stop caring about people. It does not mean you close your heart or ignore wise advice. There is a real difference between listening to someone who genuinely wants to help you grow and becoming emotionally dependent on approval just to feel worthy. One builds you up, the other keeps you small. The truth is, no matter what path you choose in life, someone will always find a reason to judge you. If you stay quiet, they judge you. If you speak up, they judge you. If you work hard, they call you obsessed. If you rest, they call you lazy. If you succeed, they find reasons to criticize it. If you struggle, they use it as proof that you never should have tried. Trying to please everyone is not just exhausting, it is completely impossible. That is why focused people stop wasting energy chasing acceptance from everybody. They make peace with the fact that not everyone will understand their journey, not everyone will celebrate their growth, and that is completely fine. Growth often requires distance. As you become more disciplined, more focused, and more intentional about your life, some relationships will naturally begin to feel different. Some people only connected with the version of you that was uncertain, distracted, and easy to influence. When you start changing, when you start becoming quieter and more serious about your future, they may pull away or even turn against you. Do not let that stop you. Some people become uncomfortable when they see you improving because your discipline reflects their own excuses back at them. Your focus reminds them of how much time they waste. Your silence reminds them of how much energy they lose talking about nothing. Your growth makes them confront something they would rather avoid. That is their journey, not yours. Protect your vision. Stop explaining your plans to people who have never built anything meaningful themselves. Stop asking for permission to improve your own life. The more focused you become, the less you'll need anyone else to confirm that you are on the right path. Real confidence is not built from the outside, it is built quietly from within. It comes from discipline, from self-respect, from showing up for yourself consistently even when nobody is watching. It comes from choosing your future over your comfort again and again, day after day, without anyone applauding the effort. Over time, this builds something that outside opinions simply cannot destroy. A deep, steady, unshakable belief in yourself. Not because everyone agrees with you, but because you have proven to yourself through action and consistency that you are capable of more than you once believed. When you stop depending on validation, you become emotionally free in a way that most people never experience. Criticism no longer controls your mood. Rejection no longer collapses your confidence. You stop chasing attention because you finally understand that peace is far more valuable than approval. And slowly, deliberately, you begin building a life shaped by your own values instead of other people's expectations. That's when everything starts to change. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you stop waiting for the world to give you permission to begin.
Most people only work hard when they feel like it, when the motivation is fresh, when the excitement is high, when everything feels possible and the future looks bright. But the moment life becomes difficult, boring, or emotionally draining, they slow down, they make excuses, they wait for the feeling to return before they try again. And because feelings are unstable and unreliable, their progress is unstable and unreliable too. This is one of the most honest things you will ever hear about success. Motivation is not enough. Motivation is a visitor. It comes when conditions feel right and disappears the moment things get hard. If your entire future is built on waiting to feel motivated, you will spend most of your life waiting instead of building. Disciplined people move differently. They do not wait for the right feeling before they begin. They understand that the feeling often comes after the action, not before it. They continue working when they are tired. They continue improving when progress feels invisible. They continue showing up when no one is watching and no one is clapping. Not because they are extraordinary people, but because they have made a quiet decision to stop letting their emotions determine the direction of their life. This is why your discipline must become invisible. Not performed, not announced, not shared online for validation, truly invisible, happening in the private hours when the rest of the world is distracted or asleep. Real discipline does not look impressive in the moment. It looks like waking up early when you would rather stay in bed. It looks like sitting down to work when everything inside you wants to avoid it. It looks like choosing your long-term future over your short-term comfort over and over again in small, quiet moments that nobody ever sees. That is where real transformation is built, not in the highlight moments, in the ordinary ones. Many people today have confused the appearance of productivity with actual productivity. They document every workout, announce every goal, share every small step of their journey. And while there's nothing wrong with sharing your life, the problem comes when the sharing starts replacing the doing, when the attention itself becomes the reward instead of the growth, when you care more about how your progress looks to others than what it is actually building inside you. The most powerful transformations are invisible at first. Nobody sees the quiet nights you spend working on yourself instead of wasting time. Nobody sees the sacrifices behind your discipline. Nobody sees the internal battles you fight just to stay consistent. People only notice the results later and immediately call it overnight success, natural talent, or luck. But there's no such thing as overnight success. There is only invisible effort that finally became visible. A strong body is not built in a single week of hard training. It is built through months of consistent effort, through the days when you were tired and trained anyway, through the meals you chose carefully when nobody was checking. A strong mind is not built in a single conversation or a single book. It is built slowly through years of choosing discipline over distraction, clarity over noise, growth over comfort. Everything meaningful takes time, and this is exactly where most people fail. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack patience. They want results in days when real results require months. They want transformation in weeks when real transformation requires years. The moment progress becomes slow or invisible, they lose faith. They assume nothing is working, so they quit, return to old habits, and start the whole cycle over again from the beginning. Quiet people understand something that impatient people never do. Small daily actions, repeated consistently over a long period of time, eventually create massive change. A person who reads every single day becomes sharper, wiser, and more capable than they were before. A person who trains their body consistently becomes physically stronger in ways that cannot be faked. A person who controls their emotional reactions consistently becomes mentally stronger, calmer, and harder to disturb. A person who protects their focus and stays disciplined while everyone else stays distracted eventually builds a completely different life from everyone around them. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. One extraordinary day of effort followed by 2 weeks of nothing will never beat quiet daily progress that never stops. The person who shows up every single day, even imperfectly, even slowly, even without applause, will always outgrow the person who only shows up when the conditions feel perfect. There will be seasons in your journey that feel genuinely painful, seasons where nobody supports what you are building, seasons where progress feels so slow that you question whether anything is actually happening, seasons where you feel mentally exhausted, emotionally drained, and completely unsure of yourself. These seasons are not signs that you are failing. They are the seasons where discipline separates the people who eventually succeed from the people who eventually quit. Anyone can work hard when they feel inspired. Anyone can stay focused when life is going smoothly and results are coming quickly. But very few people can stay committed when life is hard, when progress is invisible, and the finish line feels impossibly far away. That is exactly where your character is built, in the difficult, unglamorous, invisible middle of the process. The strongest people are rarely the loudest ones. Many of them are quiet individuals doing serious work behind the scenes while the world looks in a completely different direction. They're not chasing attention because their vision is bigger than the need for temporary validation. Every single day they are building something that most people around them cannot yet see or understand. And then one day, after months or years of invisible effort, people suddenly notice. They notice the confidence, they notice the calmness, they notice the discipline, the results, the transformation. But what those people will never fully see are the quiet years of consistent work that made it all possible. The early mornings, the private sacrifices, the moments of doubt that were overcome in silence. This is the truth about real growth. It is not loud, it is not glamorous, it is not built for an audience. It is built in the quiet, private, unglamorous hours when you choose to keep going simply because you know where you are trying to go. Protect your routines, guard your focus, keep your habits strong even when nobody notices, because invisible discipline, practiced consistently and quietly, always becomes visible success in the end.
Think about the last time you spent an entire day around someone who complained constantly, someone who criticized everything, spread negativity about people who were not in the room, and turned every conversation into a discussion about problems, failures, and everything wrong with the world. Remember how you felt by the end of that day. Not just tired, not just bored, deeply drained, heavy in a way that was hard to explain, like something invisible had been slowly taken from you without your permission. That feeling was not a coincidence. The people around you affect your mental and emotional state far more deeply than most people ever realize. Energy is not just a metaphor. It is something real that moves between people in every interaction. And if you are not careful about who you allow into your daily life, you will spend your best years feeling exhausted by other people's chaos instead of building something meaningful with your own strength. Some people drain your energy every single time you speak with them. They always focus on what is wrong instead of what is possible. They complain about life constantly, but never make a single change to improve it. They mock ambition, they discourage discipline, they criticize anyone around them who is genuinely trying to grow. And the most dangerous thing about this kind of energy is that it spreads quietly. You do not notice it happening immediately, but after enough time in that environment, your own motivation begins to weaken. Your own belief starts to shrink. You begin to see the world the way they see it without even realizing the shift has happened. Negative people often project their frustration onto the people closest to them. When you share a dream, they immediately explain why it will not work. When you try to build better habits, they call you obsessed or tell you that you have changed. When you become quieter and more focused, they accuse you of becoming cold or distant. But what is really happening is much simpler than that. Your growth makes them uncomfortable. Your discipline reminds them of the effort they are avoiding. Your silence reminds them of how much time they spend on things that do not matter. And rather than face that discomfort honestly, they redirect it toward you. This is why distance becomes necessary, not out of hatred, not out of arrogance, but out of genuine self-preservation. You cannot build a peaceful, focused, disciplined life while constantly surrounded by stress, negativity, and emotional confusion. A plant cannot grow in poisoned soil no matter how strong the seed is, and a mind cannot grow toward its full potential when it is constantly being pulled down by the weight of other people's unresolved pain. Many people stay connected to unhealthy relationships far longer than they should because they are afraid of loneliness. They continue talking to people who drain them, disrespect them, or quietly keep them small because the alternative feels too uncomfortable. But here is a truth that most people discover too late. Loneliness is temporary. The damage done by years spent in the wrong environment can take much longer to recover from. Sometimes being alone with your own thoughts, your own goals, and your own growing sense of self is far healthier than being surrounded by people who never truly wanted you to rise. Quiet people understand this at a level that others do not. They stop forcing connections that no longer feel honest. They stop trying to rescue people who have no desire to change themselves. They stop spending emotional energy arguing with minds that are committed to staying negative. Instead, they quietly create distance and pour that saved energy into building something real inside themselves. This does not mean your life must become empty or isolated. It means your life must become intentional. The people you allow close to you should add something genuine to your life. They should inspire growth, encourage honesty, bring peace, and make you feel stronger after spending time with them rather than weaker. That is the standard. Not perfection, not constant positivity, but a genuine sense that this relationship is building you up rather than slowly pulling you apart. As you grow, your life will naturally become quieter. You will lose interest in drama. You will stop finding gossip entertaining. You will no longer feel the need to prove yourself in conversations that were never really about truth to begin with. You will become more protective of your time, your attention, and the emotional space inside your own mind. This is not coldness. This is not arrogance. This is maturity. This is what it looks like when a person finally starts taking their own life seriously. Many people waste enormous amounts of time and energy reacting emotionally to everything around them. Every insult ruins their entire day. Every disagreement becomes a battle they feel they must win. Every negative opinion from a stranger or acquaintance has the power to shake their entire sense of self. But emotionally strong people learn something quietly through experience. Not every situation deserves your reaction. Not every person deserves your explanation. Not every argument is worth your energy. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful response you can give. Sometimes, distance is the healthiest decision you can make. And sometimes, protecting your peace matters far more than proving your point.
Your mind becomes sharper and stronger when it is not constantly overloaded with other people's chaos. A peaceful environment allows you to think clearly, to plan carefully, to feel your own emotions without them being constantly overwhelmed by the emotions of everyone around you. This is why successful, focused people become increasingly selective about who they allow into their inner world. Not because they are cold, but because they understand that the quality of your environment shapes the quality of your thinking, and the quality of your thinking shapes every decision you make. Energy is contagious in both directions. Spend enough time around disciplined people, and their discipline will quietly influence yours. Spend enough time around focused people, and your own focus will naturally sharpen. But the reverse is equally true. Spend enough time around people who are negative, distracted, and emotionally chaotic, and those qualities will begin appearing in your own life, whether you intend them to or not. That is why you must be genuinely careful about who you give your time to. Not suspicious of everyone, not closed off from the world, but thoughtful, intentional, willing to ask yourself honestly whether the people closest to you are helping you move toward the life you want or quietly helping you stay comfortable in the life you are trying to leave behind. The more peaceful your life becomes, the more some people will misinterpret your growth as rejection. They will say you have become distant. They will say you think you are better than everyone now. They will say you changed, and they will be right. You did change. You changed because you finally decided that your peace matters, that your focus matters, that your future matters enough to protect it from the things that were slowly destroying it. When you stop allowing negativity to dominate your environment, the effects are immediate and real. You sleep better, you think more clearly, you feel less emotionally drained by the end of each day. Your focus returns, your discipline strengthens, your belief in what is possible begins to grow again. You start to feel like yourself again, maybe for the first time in years. That is the quiet power of protecting your energy. It doesn't make the news, nobody celebrates it, but it changes everything from the inside out. And when your inner world finally becomes peaceful and focused, your outer world has no choice but to begin reflecting that same transformation back to you.
There's an addiction spreading quietly through modern life that almost nobody talks about honestly. It does not come in a bottle, it does not require a prescription, it looks completely normal from the outside and is even celebrated in most social circles, but it is slowly stealing the future from millions of people who do not even realize they're caught in it. That addiction is the constant need for attention. Everywhere you look today, people are performing their lives instead of actually living them. They are not working toward goals, they are working toward the appearance of goals. They are not building discipline, they are documenting the idea of discipline. They are not genuinely transforming, they are creating the image of transformation for an audience that will forget them by tomorrow. And the tragedy is not that they are seeking attention, the tragedy is that they are trading their actual future for a feeling that lasts only a few hours at most. Attention is the most temporary reward you can chase. A post gets noticed today and is forgotten by next week. A compliment lands in the morning and means nothing by evening. Praise from strangers fills an emotional gap for a moment, and then the gap returns, wider than before, demanding more. So the person chases more attention, posts more, shares more, announces more, and all the while, the real work of building a meaningful life quietly goes undone. This is why so many people look successful on the surface, but feel completely empty underneath. The image of progress has replaced actual progress. The performance of growth has replaced genuine growth. And no amount of attention from the outside world can fill the space that only real self-development can fill. Real growth happens in the opposite direction from where most people are looking. It happens in the quiet moments nobody ever sees. It happens when you wake up before the world is watching and do the work anyway. It happens when you stay committed during a season when your life looks completely ordinary from the outside. It happens when you choose to improve yourself not for an audience, but because you genuinely respect the person you are trying to become. Quiet people understand something that most of the world is still learning.
Attention is temporary, but self-improvement changes your entire life permanently. The discipline you build quietly will serve you for decades. The knowledge you accumulate privately will open doors that no amount of public performance ever could. The emotional strength you develop in silence will carry you through storms that would destroy someone who was only ever performing strength rather than actually building it. Think about the two different kinds of people you have seen in your own life. The first kind is always announcing what they are about to do. They are constantly sharing their plans, their goals, their new routines, their fresh starts. They generate a lot of energy and excitement around the idea of changing, but somehow months later, nothing has actually shifted. They are still in the same place, often preparing to announce the next great plan they have for their future. The second kind barely says anything at all. They don't post about their morning routine. They don't announce when they start working on something new. They simply disappear into the work and reappear, sometimes months or years later, genuinely different, genuinely transformed. Not because they are smarter or more talented than anyone else, but because they stopped feeding the need for attention and started feeding their actual growth instead. The difference between these two kinds of people is not intelligence, it is not opportunity, it is not even discipline in the beginning. It is simply what they chose to become addicted to. One became addicted to the feeling of being seen, the other became addicted to the feeling of genuinely improving. And here's the powerful truth about becoming addicted to progress. Unlike attention, it never leaves you empty afterward. Every time you finish a difficult workout, every time you complete a chapter, every time you stay focused when distraction was easier, every time you keep a promise to yourself in private, something builds inside you that cannot be taken away. It doesn't fade by morning. It doesn't disappear when people stop watching. It stays, it compounds, and over time it becomes the foundation of a confidence so deep and so quiet that nothing outside of you can easily shake it. This is the kind of person the world quietly respects without always being able to explain why. Not the loudest person in the room, not the most impressive person on a screen, but the person who walks in with a calmness that comes from knowing who they are and what they have been building when nobody was watching. That calmness is not an act. It cannot be performed. It can only be earned through the private, consistent, unglamorous work of genuinely becoming better. Becoming addicted to progress means falling in love with the process instead of the outcome. Most people are only in love with the destination. They want the result, the body, the success, the confidence, the financial freedom, but they have no real relationship with the daily process that creates those things. So the moment the process feels slow or boring or difficult, they abandon it and go looking for shortcuts. And because real shortcuts don't exist, they end up cycling through the same patterns for years without ever breaking free. People who are addicted to progress think differently. They find meaning in the ordinary Tuesday when nobody's watching and nothing feels exciting. They find satisfaction in the quiet completion of a task that nobody asked about and nobody will praise. They understand that every single day of honest effort is a deposit into a future that most people around them cannot yet see, and they trust the process enough to keep making those deposits even when the account doesn't seem to be growing yet. This shift in focus, from attention to progress, from performance to genuine growth, changes everything about how you experience your own life. You stop feeling empty after receiving praise because you are no longer dependent on it. You stop feeling destroyed by criticism because your confidence is no longer built on other people's opinions. You stop comparing your journey to everyone else's because you were too focused on your own to be distracted by theirs. You begin to move through the world differently, quieter, more grounded, more patient, less reactive, more focused on where you are going than on who is watching you get there. And that quality, that quiet, unshakable forward momentum is what eventually creates the kind of transformation that makes people stop and ask how you changed so much without anyone noticing. The answer will always be the same. You stopped needing anyone to notice. You stopped performing your growth and started living it. You chose progress over attention, consistency over applause, and your own future over every temporary feeling that tried to pull you away from it. And that quiet choice, made again and again in private, became the most powerful thing you ever did for your life.
Every journey has a moment where everything begins to come together, not dramatically, not suddenly, but quietly, the way dawn comes before most people are awake to notice it. You do not see the exact moment darkness becomes light. You simply look up one morning and realize the world around you is brighter than it was before. That is what real transformation feels like, not a single explosive event. A slow, quiet, undeniable shift that was being built long before anyone around you could see it coming. You have been on that kind of journey. Maybe you are still in the middle of it right now. Maybe the results are not yet visible to the people around you. Maybe your life still looks ordinary from the outside, while something extraordinary is quietly being constructed within you. If that is where you are, understand this deeply. The fact that nobody can see your progress yet does not mean your progress is not real. The most important growth in any person's life happens long before it becomes visible to the world. The people who changed their lives most profoundly were not the ones who waited until conditions were perfect. They were not the ones who waited until they felt completely ready, completely supported, or completely free from doubt. They were the ones who decided, in some quiet, private moment, that the life they were living was no longer acceptable, and the life they wanted was worth every difficult, unglamorous, invisible step required to reach it. That decision is everything, not the motivation that follows it, not the excitement of a fresh start, the quiet, serious, unspectacular decision to keep going, regardless of how long it takes, regardless of who notices, regardless of how many times the journey feels impossibly slow. Most people never make that decision fully. They make a version of it. They decide to try. They decide to start. They decide to give it a few weeks and see what happens. But a true commitment to your own growth is something different. It is not a trial. It is not an experiment. It is a permanent shift in how you see yourself and what you believe you owe yourself. And once that shift happens genuinely, from the inside rather than from a moment of temporary inspiration, almost nothing can reverse it. This is what separates the people who transform from the people who stay stuck in the same cycles for decades. Not talent, not privilege, not perfect circumstances or ideal timing. The difference is a quiet inner decision that was made seriously and then honored consistently, even during the seasons when honoring it was the hardest thing in the world to do. Think about what you have already learned through everything you have been walking through. You have learned that silence is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful forms of self-protection available to you. You have learned that the goals you protect from unnecessary attention grow stronger than the ones you expose to every opinion around you. You have learned that your energy is valuable and finite, and that giving it away carelessly to drama, negativity, and people who do not deserve it is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make. You have learned that validation from the outside world will never build the kind of confidence that actually sustains you through difficulty. Real confidence is built privately, through discipline, through kept promises, through showing up for yourself when it would have been far easier to make an excuse and walk away. You have learned that the people around you shape your thinking more deeply than most people are willing to admit, and that protecting the quality of your environment is not selfishness, but wisdom. And perhaps most importantly, you have learned that progress matters infinitely more than performance, that the quiet work done in private, the early mornings, the consistent efforts, the invisible discipline, the small daily choices that nobody ever celebrates is the only work that truly builds a life worth living. Now, the question is not whether you understand these things. The question is what you choose to do with them, starting from this moment forward. Because understanding is only the beginning. The real work happens in the space between understanding and action.
In that space, every excuse lives, every distraction waits, every comfortable habit tries to pull you back toward the familiar. And the only thing that moves you through that space is the decision to keep going anyway. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but consistently, quietly, and with a growing belief that where you are going is worth everything the journey requires. Your silence from this point forward is not emptiness, it is intention. Every moment you choose focus over distraction is an act of faith in your own future. Every moment you choose discipline over comfort is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every moment you protect your peace instead of surrendering it to chaos is a declaration that your life has value and direction and that you take that seriously. The world will not always understand your quietness. People who are used to a louder version of you may feel confused or even threatened by your new direction. Some will try to pull you back into old patterns because your growth unsettles something in them. Some will misread your focus as arrogance. Some will misread your boundaries as coldness. Let them misread it. Your journey is not your responsibility. Your journey is your responsibility. There will still be hard days, days where doubt creeps back in and the destination feels impossibly far. Days where you are tired and the discipline feels heavy and you wonder quietly whether all of this effort is truly leading somewhere. On those days, remember this: every person who ever built something real went through exactly those moments. Every person who ever transformed their life felt that weight. The difference between the ones who made it and the ones who didn't was simply that the ones who made it kept going anyway. You do not need to have everything figured out. You do not need to feel fearless. You do not need the approval of the people around you, or the perfect conditions, or the guarantee of a specific outcome. You only need to make one small, honest choice at a time in the direction of the life you want. One morning at a time, one decision at a time, one quiet act of discipline at a time. That's how a life is changed, not in a single dramatic moment, but in the accumulation of thousands of small, private, unglamorous moments where you chose yourself, chose your future, and chose to keep building even when nobody was watching and nothing felt certain. The transformation is already happening. Keep going.
There is something that happens to a person who has been quietly working on themselves for a long time. Something that cannot be faked, cannot be rushed, and cannot be borrowed from anyone else. It is a kind of stillness that settles into who they are. Not the stillness of someone who has given up or stopped caring, but the stillness of someone who has finally stopped fighting against their own life and started building it instead. A deep, grounded, unshakable calm that comes from knowing exactly who you are and exactly where you are going, even when the road ahead is not yet fully visible. Most people never reach that stillness because they never stop long enough to find it. They are always reacting, always defending, always chasing the next thing that promises to make them feel better, more worthy, more complete. They move through life in a constant state of emotional turbulence, not because their circumstances are uniquely difficult, but because they have never learned the most important skill a human being can develop: the skill of being at peace with themselves, regardless of what is happening around them. That skill is not taught in schools. It is not found in a single book or a single conversation. It is built slowly, privately, through the practice of choosing your response instead of surrendering to your reaction, through the practice of sitting with discomfort instead of immediately running from it, through the practice of trusting yourself even when the evidence of your progress is not yet visible to anyone else. This is what it truly means to do the inner work. Not just the physical discipline of building better habits or the mental discipline of staying focused on your goals, but the deeper, quieter work of learning to be genuinely okay within yourself.
learning to find your footing not in the approval of others or the comfort of circumstances, but in the solid, unmoving ground of your own values and your own commitment to becoming who you are meant to be. Many people avoid this inner work for their entire lives because it is uncomfortable in a way that nothing else quite is. It requires you to look honestly at the parts of yourself you would rather not acknowledge, the fears you have been avoiding, the patterns you have been repeating, the stories you have been telling yourself about why you cannot change, why you do not deserve better, why the life you want is somehow meant for other people but not for you. Looking at those things clearly, without flinching and without excuses, takes a kind of courage that is far more demanding than any external challenge. But the people who do that work, who face themselves honestly and refuse to look away, discover something remarkable on the other side of that discomfort. They discover that most of what they were afraid to look at was not as powerful as they imagined it to be. That the fears, when faced directly, begin to shrink, that the patterns, when recognized clearly, begin to lose their hold, that the stories, when examined honestly, begin to reveal themselves as exactly what they always were: stories, not facts, not destiny, just old narratives that were never truly serving them and can be quietly replaced with something far more honest and far more useful. This is when your relationship with yourself begins to change, when you stop treating yourself as someone who needs to be managed, distracted, and kept comfortable at all costs, and start treating yourself as someone worth investing in, worth being honest with, and worth the difficulty of genuine transformation. That shift in self-relationship changes everything about how you move through the world. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never built for who you actually are. You stop apologizing for your ambitions or your quietness or your refusal to participate in things that drain you. You stop waiting for external circumstances to change before you allow yourself to feel capable and worthy. You begin to carry yourself differently. Not with arrogance, but with a quiet assurance that comes from genuinely knowing your own worth and no longer needing the world to confirm it for you. People around you will notice this change even before they can name what is different. There will be something about the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you respond to difficulty and to pressure that will feel different from the person they knew before. More grounded, more measured, less easily shaken, less hungry for things that used to seem urgent and now seem completely unimportant. That change is not accidental. It is the natural result of doing the quiet work consistently over time, of choosing your inner world over external noise again and again in the small, private moments that nobody ever witnesses but that shape everything about who you are becoming. The world has a way of testing the people who are genuinely growing. Just when your clarity returns and your confidence begins to solidify, something will appear to challenge it. A setback you did not see coming, a person who tries to pull you back into old patterns, a season of difficulty that makes the path forward feel uncertain again. These tests are not punishments, they are confirmations. They show up to reveal how much of your growth is truly rooted and how much was still dependent on comfortable conditions. The person who has done the real inner work does not collapse under those tests. They bend because they're human and difficulty is real, and pretending otherwise serves no one, but they do not break, because their foundation is no longer built on feelings that shift or circumstances that change or other people's opinions that were never reliable to begin with. Their foundation is built on something they constructed themselves, quietly, privately, and with great care. And that kind of foundation holds even when everything around it is shaking. This is the person you are in the process of becoming. Not someone without flaws or fears or difficult days, but someone who has learned to keep moving through all of those things without losing themselves in them. Someone who has built enough inner stability to face uncertainty without panic, to face criticism without collapse, and to face the long, unglamorous middle of the journey without losing faith in where it is leading. Every single day that you choose your growth over your comfort, every day that you protect your peace instead of surrendering it, every day that you do the quiet work that nobody sees and nobody praises, you are adding to a foundation that will hold you through things you cannot yet imagine. You are becoming someone that the person you were even a year ago would genuinely admire. That is not a small thing. That is everything. That is the whole point of the journey, not the destination, not the moment when everyone finally understands, but the person you have quietly, persistently, and courageously become in the process of getting there. Keep doing the work. Keep protecting your peace. Keep trusting the process, even when it is slow, even when it is hard, even when it is completely invisible to everyone around you. Because the life that is waiting on the other side of your consistency is worth every quiet, disciplined, unglamorous step it takes to reach it.
There comes a point in every genuine transformation where you stop measuring your progress by how far you still have to go and start recognizing how far you have already come. Not with arrogance, not with the assumption that the work is finished, but with an honest, quiet acknowledgement that the person sitting with these words right now is not the same person who started this journey. Something has shifted. Something real has been built. And no matter how invisible that shift might still feel on certain days, it is there, it is permanent, and it belongs entirely to you. Look at what you have chosen. You chose to stop performing your life for an audience that was never truly invested in your growth. You chose to protect your energy instead of giving it away endlessly to people and situations that left you empty. You chose silence over noise, discipline over comfort, and genuine progress over the temporary satisfaction of being seen. Those were not easy choices. They went against almost everything modern life encourages, and you made them anyway. That matters more than you might currently understand. The world we live in is designed to keep people distracted. Every system, every platform, every notification is engineered to pull your attention away from your own inner life and redirect it towards something external, toward comparison, toward consumption, toward the constant performance of a self that is shaped by what others expect rather than what you actually are. Most people surrender to that pull completely without ever questioning it. They live their entire lives on the surface, endlessly reacting, endlessly seeking, never quite arriving at the stillness and the depth that makes life feel truly meaningful. You chose differently, and that choice, quietly and consistently honored, is what brought you here. But here's something important to understand about this kind of growth. It does not end at a specific destination. There is no single morning you will wake up and feel completely finished, completely healed, completely transformed in every way you ever hoped to be. Growth is not a destination you arrive at. It is a direction you commit to. And the commitment itself, renewed each day in small private moments, is what keeps the transformation alive and moving forward. There will still be days when the old patterns try to return, days when the need for validation feels louder than usual, days when discipline feels heavier and the pull toward distraction feels almost irresistible, days when doubt comes back and tries to convince you that none of this effort has truly changed anything. Those days are not evidence that you have failed. They are evidence that you are human. The difference now is that you know what those moments are. You can see them clearly. You understand what is happening inside you well enough to choose a response instead of being swept away by a reaction. That awareness is one of the most valuable things you have built through all of this quiet work. Not just better habits, not just a calmer mind, but the ability to observe yourself honestly, to understand the difference between what is real and what is just an old fear talking, and to make a conscious choice about which voice you follow. That ability changes everything about the quality of your daily experience. The quiet life is not an empty life. This is perhaps the most important thing to understand as you carry these lessons forward.
Choosing silence over noise does not mean choosing isolation over connection. Choosing focus over distraction does not mean choosing rigidity over joy. Choosing private growth over public performance does not mean choosing loneliness over love. It means choosing depth over surface. It means building a life that has real substance underneath it rather than a beautiful appearance with nothing solid beneath. The relationships that survive your growth and your increasing quietness are the ones worth keeping. The people who stay when you stop performing for them, who respect your boundaries without needing endless explanations, who inspire you without draining you, who celebrate your growth without feeling threatened by it. Those people are rare, and they are worth everything. As you grow quieter and more intentional, you naturally create the conditions for those kinds of relationships to find you, because like energy attracts like energy. And the more genuinely grounded you become, the more you will find yourself surrounded by people who are building something real with their own lives as well. Your future is not built in a single dramatic moment of transformation. It is built in the accumulation of who you choose to be on the ordinary days. The Tuesday morning when nothing feels inspiring and you do the work anyway. The moment when someone tries to pull you into drama and you choose your peace instead. The evening when you could scroll mindlessly for hours and you choose something that feeds your mind or rests your body instead. The quiet decision to keep one more promise to yourself when breaking it would have been so much easier. Those moments are not glamorous. They will never go viral. Nobody will ever applaud you for them, but they are the actual substance of a transformed life. They are where your future is genuinely being built, one invisible choice at a time. Carry your silence with confidence. It is not emptiness, it is depth. Carry your boundaries with kindness. They are not walls, they are wisdom. And carry your discipline with patience. It is not punishment, it is the highest form of self-respect. And carry your journey with humility, knowing that growth never truly ends and that the best version of yourself is always one that is still being built, still being refined, still being shaped by every honest choice you make in the quiet moments nobody else will ever see. You do not need the world to understand what you are building. You do not need a single person's permission to become who you are meant to be. You do not need the noise, the validation, the applause, or the guarantee of a specific outcome before you commit fully to your own growth. You only need the quiet, steady, unshakable decision to keep going, to keep choosing yourself, to keep honoring the vision you carry, even on the days when it feels impossibly distant. That decision, sincerely and honored consistently, is the most powerful thing any human being can do with the life they have been given. The work continues, the journey continues, and so do you.